Welcome to the Billable Mom podcast, led by attorney Cari Rincker, where we discuss working motherhood, but especially geared to professional mothers who are trying to juggle their time. Our time is precious, both at work and at home. We talk time management and productivity hacks, the struggles of being a working parent, and provide a community where other billable moms are also trying to calm the chaos 6 minutes at a time. Listen to stories of other working moms, but especially lawyer moms, navigate the waters balancing career and the ever-present demands of motherhood.
Hi, I'm Cari Rincker. I'm the Billable Mom, and I am really excited for today's podcast because we have Laura Freeman here from the Trip Trotter. Laura, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us who you are and your path to motherhood.
Hi, my name is Laura Freeman. I am based in New York City, and I am a travel advisor and also the mom to a 20-month-old boy named Ryan.
So, Laura, I was seeing him this morning, and I don't remember when exactly that I met you when I was living in New York City, but I know that it was pre-motherhood for both of us. And I know when I first met you, I was so curious about what you did professionally. So for those listeners that don't know what a travel advisor is exactly, why don't you delve a little bit into that?
So, one might think that planning a vacation is, easier than ever with, all the internet, everything at your fingertips. But I think with so many resources, it's actually just become, a little bit more difficult because, everyone thinks that they are a critic and they'll post a review, but their taste isn't necessarily your taste. And it's really hard to, filter through all these reviews. So a travel agent really helps you match with the right property, and then really, plan your vacation specifically to your needs and desires. People are traveling to further places and doing more complicated trips, with more cities in one trip. So we handle all the logistics. We can help with dining and spa and, your tours, tickets, really, a one-stop shop for your vacation. So it really truly feels like a vacation from start to finish. And, you're not stressed and overwhelmed and wondering, how am I going to get from here to there, and make an enjoyable experience for everyone.
So one of the first times that we worked together, I don't know if you remember this, Laura, but you helped plan my trip to Thailand. So this was definitely pre-kids for me. But, what was amazing about that experience is that, you really tailored it to my wishes on what I wanted to do. And I had the itinerary, everything was planned out. You had such great insight on things like even just getting a personal car, which just made me feel so safe whenever I was there. And just for our listeners to be aware, we have worked together here for the last several years since that time on even just small things like I need a hotel in Vancouver, right? Or also just helping to plan like a whole week whenever I was back in New York. So I just really appreciate what you do.
Awesome. Happy to help.
All right. So Laura, what I would like to start with today is talk a little bit more about your journey as a business owner with a small child. So do you want to delve a little bit more into that?
Sure. So originally I started my business so that I would have, the flexibility to, have a family. My background is in fashion, and there was just no flexibility. You couldn't, leave if someone got sick. Or, go out for an appointment. And, that was really something that was important to me. But, even with a job that is, flexible, I can, pending an emergency, I can get back to my clients within, a 24-hour period. But, even so, I found that obviously having a child is just so much more difficult. They're sick so much more than, you think that they are. And then, my son goes to this wonderful school, but, the school will have an event. And my job also has a lot of outside of work events, parties. It's a relationship business. And a lot of the night events, have been challenging, to go to. So it's been really great having, a supportive partner that we can, balance schedules with each other. But, it's definitely been a learning curve. I'm getting, my first assistant, which I should have done a long time ago. Spending a little bit more money to, have someone take care of jobs that I shouldn't be doing so that I can have, a little bit more time to be with my family has been something that I've realized, is a priority of mine. So it's definitely, been a challenge, but I've definitely learned a lot in the last year and a half, and it's going to continue to evolve.
So talk to me a little bit more about your routine and how you sort of balance home life and work life right now.
So my son goes to school from 8:30 to 5:30. And, he has a, 7, he wakes up around 7 a.m., goes to bed around 7:30. Um, I love to cook, and having, healthy home cooked meals is something that is important to me. And it's been a big transition having, all the time in the world to do meal prep and everything to not have that. So we do a lot of meal prepping and planning, on the weekends, so that when I get home with him at 5:30, I'm not spending all of my time, in the kitchen, and we can play together, and then I can get a healthy meal on the table for him, before his bath time, and then his bed, around 7:30.
So talk to me a little bit more about that in terms of meal prep. Like, what exactly are you doing on the weekends? Are you planning all of your meals each of the evening, making sure you have all the ingredients? Are you actually doing cooking ahead of time?
So a little bit of both. I I follow Weight Watchers myself, and so the healthy aspect of it is really important to me. So I do all of our, most of our grocery shopping on the weekends. I live in New York, and I think one of the great parts about that is that there are stores everywhere. And so on my way home, we shop like a European style. We don't do like big shoppings. So I can get fresh produce several times a week quite easily. But, I definitely, his Sunday nap is when I sit down and I, plan out our dinners for the week, have some good ideas of lunches. And then we have a lot of staples for things that we, just recipes that we reuse often. We have a good rotation of things that are easy, a good rotation of snacks and healthy items that we can, quickly have on hand.
So talk to me a little bit more about your support system. I mean, I know that you mentioned that your child goes to daycare, that you have a partner, but do you have other family nearby, or how are you navigating that?
So that's, I think, been our biggest struggle is we don't have family here. My parents are outside of Boston. My husband's mom is in Tennessee, and his dad is in Wisconsin. So it's been such a struggle. If he gets sick, like one of us has to be there. We don't have, a mom or dad that can come over and watch him, or let us have a date night, or whatever. So it's really been just us. I mean, like, I will be the first to admit it, I have a little problem with, control, and, I'm so particular about a babysitter, and like, well, I know having a good rotation of babysitters um, would be a good option, and a healthy thing to do. It's something that's just a little bit hard for me. And I wish that we were closer to our family. Um, but I also am not quite ready to give up my city lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit how you navigate when your son is sick, because I personally, in the last 2 weeks, have had a childcare struggle myself. I have not one but two nannies, and just for reasons I won't get into, myriad of childcare issues on both sides. My son was sick last weekend. My daughter was sick earlier in the week. I mean, it's just been kind of a rough 2 weeks, and it really puts you off balance as a professional. So how do you navigate those days?
It's difficult. I'm very fortunate. Again, I created my job so that I could have flexibility, and Um, it's a lot of luck that I don't have a lot of emergencies happen when they get sick. And I'm hoping that, by hiring an assistant who will be trained very well, they can really help with a lot of those things. Um, but, again, it's working when he naps. It's working, when he goes to bed. And sometimes, I have to put on this Rachel and not feel guilty about it because we all have to just get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we talk more about travel tips, could you maybe talk a little bit more about how your company, the Trip Trotter, can help other billable moms just in general?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that planning a trip is overwhelming. I'm planning a trip for our family to Portugal in April. And like, even as someone who knows the business very well, I'm overwhelmed by all that, because you let yourself go down a rabbit hole. Oh, what if we do this? What if we do that? And I think that people are bombarded with choices and have decision fatigue. And so, uh, you know, uh, the more I work with someone, the more I know their likes, their dislikes, what kind of hotels they like, what kind of things they like to do. And I can just present, those things to you without a lot of noise. Um, and put it together in a way that just makes sense and is easy. Um, and saying, I think this might be better when the kids are older, or I think this resort for where you are right now is a great option for you. Um, and really, I see hotels constantly. Like, that is my job. I know which brands are better with kids than not with kids. And I do a lot of travel, with my family, and I know that that's something that is really scary and intimidating for a lot of people. And I think part of our job is kind of being a therapist and talking through those fears and reassuring people and making sure that they feel comfortable doing that. And with a lot of my, especially my international trips, you'll have not only me, but you'll also have a local contact that you can call if something goes wrong. And so just kind of putting in those infrastructure things that the average person might not think about, especially with small children, like where you might need a car and driver, that makes sense with little kids, where if it was just you and your partner, you could just go and get tickets and be done with it. So really kind of just talking through your decisions and putting together something that makes sense for where you are now.
I think that my own mother emailed you this week, and because it's cold here, it's like snowing outside, and asking you about a place in Bahamas, and you gave very candid, information. Like, no, I don't recommend this. I recommend this instead. And so I just wanted to know that advice is just so appreciated. Could you maybe talk a little bit about how travel agents get paid? Because it is a little confusing for people on hiring travel agents like yourself. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And so we do charge planning fees. And our fees are really the time that it takes us for, we want to make sure that you're serious. Planning vacations is fun, but it's also, our job. So if you're like, I think that I might be going somewhere, but I'm not sure, and it's just kind of something that you're thinking about, that is our time. And we do source from a lot of different vendors, to make sure that our clients are getting the best pricing and the best value. And that really, it takes a lot of time. The emails back and forth take a lot of time. We do get commissions from some places, but that's really more, I don't look at that as the full way that we get paid. A lot of things, and especially the most tedious ones, are things that we make very minimal money on, like transfers, trains, all of that kind of stuff, cars. They take the most time, but we don't really make any money of them. So a good agent will charge a fee. And if you don't work with an agent that charges a fee, they're really giving you a very generic package, a package that they're not doing a lot of research or sourcing from multiple places from. So you're going to pay for that one way or another. And I just think it's best to pay up front and really have control over the, itinerary. I'm your advocate. I'm not trying to sell you something that is not appropriate.
Yeah, I love that. So let's dive right into travel tips with kids. Hit me up. What are your big tips?
So this one I learned from experience. You have to give yourself a pep talk. Children feed off your energy. So like if you're stressed out, they're going to be stressed out and have a meltdown. And I take my son on the Amtrak alone often. And it's not fun, but I have to, just make it fun. I have to really, be that peppy person. They feed off of that. And really flexibility. Don't plan a ton of stuff. Just be flexible with, everything that you're doing. Have a plan for all of the logistics. But, don't plan a ton of tours like you would if you're just a couple. I also don't think that group tours are a place for children. And I come at that, I don't think it's good for the child. If I was another person on a tour, like I personally wouldn't want a lot of kids on there. I think if you're going to do touring, I think it really should be private for a family, and that gives you a lot of flexibility to tailor the program if the kids are getting bored, so they can avoid a meltdown, to take breaks when you need to. And I think one of the biggest things is you don't need as much stuff as you think you do. I have a running list, a standard packing list on my phone, and I am always adding to it and taking things away from it. And, before a trip, I review it and I think about what I'm actually using day to day. And it's like that joke on the internet, that you wear leisure wear all the time, but you're bringing 7 ball gowns with you. And for myself, like you think about what you're actually going to use, and remember, everywhere that you travel has babies and toddlers. It's not just something that is like, in North America. So they have a lot of things that you need there. Don't bring a ton of diapers, and I mean, unless, your child has a very specific issue. Of course, I'm speaking in, very general terms, but you don't really need that much stuff. And having that much stuff is just going to cause more nightmares in terms of bringing it from place to place.
Yeah, I'm a notorious overpacker. So, and I love the idea about having a list and really trying to pare it down. And I have taken my kids, both of them, on airplanes before. The first time I did it with Jace, I was actually flying to, I believe, New York City, and it was quite intimidating. But you know what? We got through it. Just one step, another step, another step. And I think that every time you go through that process, you learn things. But I'm curious if you have any tips. I love the one about thinking about where you are. I know a friend of mine said, if you're okay, they'll be okay. But any tips specifically for the airplane?
Snacks. A lot of snacks. I find that like plain bagels are great because they take a bunch of time to eat, and they're tactile and they don't make a huge mess. But like just like 4 times as many snacks as you think that you're going to want. And I mean, this is controversial, but I feel like I give into screen time. I remember when my parents are both transplants, and so we traveled a lot as children. And I remember my mom used to make us get dressed up, but I remember distinctly that we got to go to CVS and pick out candy, and we never got candy when we were little, and it was a big thing. And so, I like the idea of like, being able to break a bunch of rules, on a place that isn't fun, so it kind of makes it fun. But, we have a busy board that he loves, he has another kind of busy board where you have switches and lights. But I mean, you don't want something that has a lot of sound, obviously. And you don't want to have a lot of different things. So, the iPad is great. You can load it up with, some games and some shows. It's a place where I think that it's okay to give in.
Yeah, I love that in so many different ways. I'm trying to make it special. So we did fly to Texas, and I believe that we probably watched Moana about 9 times on that trip in loop. So Jason's been obsessed with that movie. And I know that this is another controversial topic about co-sleeping, and we talk a little bit about travel and sleep here in a minute. But I've never have co-slept with Jace at all, even when he was an infant. But in the last year, I have when we're on vacation. I mean, he's big enough where he can just crawl out of those cribs in the hotel, and I just don't fight it. And I have been able to keep a container on that and just, know that's only on vacation. And it was interesting, just a couple of weeks ago, Jace wanted to sleep in the bed with me. And I said, nope, that's only on vacation. And he's like, well, when are we going to go on vacation again? So it is fun to have that time be special, where you have more candy and screen time, and not to give other parents advice on co-sleeping. I just wanted to indicate what I do. With that being said, Laura, I know that whenever you book for me, we're constantly asking you for, like, we need cribs in the room. And I just ordered some air mattresses because, like I said, Jace is too big now for those cribs that are in the hotel rooms. And what are your suggestions on kids with sleep on vacation?
So I mean, if you can afford it, having a suite where there's an extra space for your kid is wonderful. I mean, because they go to bed so early. So if you have like a balcony or an extra space, where they can be, but where you can be, watching a show, talking, having a glass of wine, where you're not like in the dark. That's it. A lot of people love the travel pods. I think it's something that you really need to kind of know your own kid, because I think sleep is such you know, a, a, differs so much between kids. We're pretty lucky, knock on wood, with sleep. Um, my husband's really good with, he mostly does the bedtime routine. So he's really good at getting my son in the packet plate. When it's just us, I give into co-sleeping a lot easier. Because I'm not as patient with that part. And as I said, I think the big thing about travel is being flexible and knowing that, you might have to do the co-sleeping, and you might have to sleep in a different way than usual. We also are flexible. We keep his same times, but one thing, when we went to France, what worked for us is, he gets up at 7. We did 7 to 7 then, but we didn't stick with 7 to 7 because he's jolted by the time difference anyway. So we worked with that. When we worked at the time zone that was a better fit for us. We did 9 to 9:30 when we were traveling because, obviously they like to eat dinners later there, and, we got to sleep in more. And we figured, it's a different time zone anyway. We might as well do something that works. But I think, just being flexible and knowing your kid and their needs, and knowing that some days might be bad and meltdowns, and some days might be good, and just having those expectations, and being flexible with that.
So, and we'll shift to international trips here in a second, but domestically, what advice you have for traveling with car seats? Because I'll tell you what, I had a trip to Texas, and I won't say the rental company, and we just decided to get a rental car with a car seat on the other side of our travel, and it was a terrible, terrible car seat. And so I don't know. What do you do as a parent? Do you take your own car seat with you? Do you play the odds on the other side? I mean, what are your suggestions there?
So, this is like a very personal thing. A lot of parents are, you know, really into the car seat safety. We have the Costco Sincera, which is, I think, like 10. It's so light. It's the lightest car seat that they make. Um, I think that if you have like just a transfer, like say you're going to just one hotel, um, in that case, I would book a transfer service with a car seat. But if you're renting a car and you plan on doing your own driving, then I would bring a car seat If you're planning on spending any number of, a lot of time in a car, I would bring your own.
And as far as international trips go, do you have any tips in that regard? So I'm getting pumped up, Laura. I have my first international trip in 2024. We're going to Canada. So I know it's not that exotic, but it is international. So I've got passport, I've got global entry for both of them, even though nobody in my family supports me on that. So what are the tips here for international?
In terms of car seats, or just
in terms of traveling with kids? I mean, for example, is it worth it to go ahead and go with the global entry? And second of all, we are talking about longer trips, right? Potentially customs on the other side. I mean, are there any other tips as far as that goes?
So I love global entry. I have it. My son has it. Any way to get through a line quicker is something that is appealing to me. So a lot of airports have meet and greet services. Obviously, those have a cost associated with them. And depending on where you are, sometimes they'll even meet you on the airplane, and it's an expedited through customs. And again, they have a hefty price tag on them. So it really depends on what your budget is for that. And in general, I recommend any skip the line that you can. In terms of tickets or in general. And I think that I use a lot of the same rules that I do for domestic as I do international. But I really, really try to pare down, my packing, to as, and I like fashion, so I'm not, I still have great outfits, but just really, really being practical with yourself about what you'll really wear. And being flexible again, and being mindful of the time change, that it will take a little bit of time for your children. I mean, for myself, I can just pop a sleeping pill and be fine, but obviously I'm not going to give my son a bunch of sleeping pills to have him help with that. We like to bring a stroller. I know that a lot of people don't, and the stroller is also for our stuff more than anything. Carry a lot of snacks. We like to book photographers when we travel. It's a great way to commemorate the trip, and just have some wonderful family photos. But I really don't differentiate between domestic and international when I'm traveling with my son.
Well, speaking of both international travel and photography, I am so jealous about the trip that you took to Paris with your family. Do you want to talk a little bit about that experience and how you navigated that with a young child?
Yeah, so we took my son to Paris in Switzerland when he was 3.5 months old. And I have been to Paris many, many times. I've lived with a family there. I know the city quite well. And we had all of our transfers planned. We had our hotels planned and our photographer booked, but we really didn't have much else planned. I really liked, for the first trip, going somewhere that I knew very well, because I didn't feel like I needed to see a bunch of things or I'd miss out. I've seen all the things. And I think that that's great when you're, testing the waters with, the temperament of your child, to see how they react with travel, and yourself and how comfortable you are. So we spent the entire time just walking around, enjoying cafes. If he needed to eat, well, we just had another glass of wine, or all this. We really just had no expectations going into it, and it made it so special. And the family photos that we have are in front of the Eiffel Tower, and they are my all-time favorite photos. Like, better than our wedding pictures, better than anything else. I love these pictures. The trip was the most, as I said, I've been there many times, and it was the most special time that we were there, showing, my baby, the person I love the most in the world, the place that I love so much. And, people say, what's the point in traveling with them? They won't remember, but I remember. And it's, something that I'm going to look back on my life and always remember. And it's so special for me.
Yeah, I am so jealous about that. And I need to probably have a new motivation for some international trips. I mean, I pre-children for me, I traveled internationally, as you know. I mean, before COVID hit, I was in Bali 2 months prior to that. And, February 2020, for a big birthday that I had, I went to Prague and different places all over Europe. And it just, it's just such a part of who I am. And I have missed that part of who I am now that I have children. And I guess what I'm hearing from you is that I don't have to give that up. I can just figure out a way it's going to look different, but to take my children with me. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the key is knowing that it's going to look different and being okay with it. There are a lot of really great travel with toddler groups on Facebook that are really inspiring. And it's so great to see people of, all different walks of life, from all different places, and learn how they do things. And it's a great sounding off board. So if that's, something that you're interested in, joining those groups, I think is really, really helpful.
Well, Laura, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to talk about different organizational hacks that you have both at the office and at home. This episode of the Billable Mom podcast is brought to you by Rincker Law LLC, focusing in food, farm, and family. When I'm not a mother juggling two littles at home, I am the principal attorney of this nationally recognized law practice, where we believe that strong communities have both strong families and a food, fiber, and agriculture system. At Rincker Law, not only do we do family and matrimonial law, but we work with entrepreneurs and agriculture producers on business, estate, and succession planning. We are a client-focused, results-driven law practice. At Rincker Law, we also support other billable moms, not only in the workplace, but also with clients, helping them live their dreams both in business and at home. For more information, visit us at www.rinkerlaw.com. Cari Rincker, food, farm, and family. All right. So, Laura, I want to talk a little bit more about any organizational hacks that you have both at the office and at home. And I know that you mentioned that you just hired an assistant, and that's awesome. I'm like really into Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, right now. And I think that you will see a big difference in making that decision. But is there anything else just from a time efficiency standpoint or organizational standpoint that that you think would help our listeners?
I really rely so heavily on my calendar and my reminders app. Just because there are so many things, on my mind constantly that I can't trust myself to remember, every due date, every appointment. So everything goes on the calendar. And my husband and I share a lot of appointments with each other, so we kind of know exactly where we're going. But, just really, really putting absolutely everything in there. And, even if there's a stupid, something that you think is quite trivial that you might need to have a reminder for, I constantly having reminders on my phone for long-term and short-term things. And that's, just really, really been helpful. And having a lot of preset bags, like when I travel, I have a toiletry bag that I just reuse every time. Our diaper bag is, set with a bunch of, things. And so I just need to, put in, replenish snacks and, put in a water bottle. But, having a lot of, the grab and go kind of things and having as much set beforehand as possible so you're not scrambling.
I can only speak for myself, but like mom brain is real. Like I feel like I really have sensed a difference in myself, and I really feel strongly about writing things down. So I'm a big bullet journal person. I'm always have a notebook with me, but if I don't, like I'm trying to like grab something as soon as I think about it. and trying to get things all put into one place as much as possible. So I know you live in New York City, you live in Queens specifically, and you live in a smaller space and somebody who lives out in the country in a house, right, in comparison. So what about some organizational hacks that you have and just living in a smaller space with a child?
Again, I think it's just back. And this is something I've lived in the city for 18 years. And at that point, like I've lived in New York more than I've lived in Massachusetts. So this is really what we're used to. And again, it's really keeping things that you need and, being really good with your impulse purchases. We opt for a lot of experiences over things, because we don't have the space for them and you really don't need them. When you learn to live with less, you don't really realize that you're missing out. You know, Kitchen gadgets, that's like a little big problem for me, but I really just have to sit myself down and say, do we have the space for this? And is it worth the space that we'll lose?
Yeah, I don't know who told me about the fishbowl effect, but it's interesting because I used to live in a small little studio apartment. And, when you're choked down like that, you really think about every single purchase that you have, whereas for me now, I have tons of space and I've got boxes of Christmas decorations and Halloween decorations and just way too much stuff. So I think that that's really sage advice. So Laura, I was telling you a little bit in our conversation before this call, and I remember the name. It was Ed Milet. He is a person I heard on YouTube that was talking about how, as a parent, if you are not pursuing your own dreams, and I wouldn't go to this extreme, but Ed did, that it is a form of child abuse, because you're telling your child that you can do anything that you want to do, and if you're not also pursuing your dreams, then how are you being a good role model to them? And that has just been circling in my mind over the last few weeks of things, because it has been a struggle for me personally. I can only speak for myself on pursuing my own professional dreams, with me wanting to make sure that I'm there for my children as much as I can and being a very present parent. So I'm curious how you sort of navigate your own career aspirations with, parenthood.
Well, I created my company 10 years ago. And so it is also my baby. And I love what I do. And I went a little crazy on maternity leave. I'm not gonna lie. I love adults. I love being around other people. And I think that it really rejuvenates me to work, so that I can be a better and more present parent. Um, and especially having a son, I think it's really important for him to, see his mom being the boss, doing everything that dad does, having purpose, um, enjoying the perks of my work. But I think mom guilt is so hard and so real, because you want to be, Martha Stewart. As I said, I love cooking. I love having, you know, I love Pinterest. I love all of that. And, you know, how much you can do versus making yourself crazy. I'd love to be at the gym every day. There's so many things that I'd love to do. And I think being realistic with myself about what I can do, and what I want to do, that's been a really big issue. And for myself, what's really helped me is reframing it as, this is what I can do now. Like pre-child, I was at the gym, 5-6 times a week. I had abs. And I just had to be honest with myself and say, I can't do that now. I still, get my steps in. So I'm, and I go to the gym, 2, maybe 3 times a week. But it's not the way that it looked like, and it's not forever. Like, everything is not forever. And that's been a mantra that has really helped me get, through all of this. But, we live a life that we can't afford on one salary. And I don't think that my son is thriving at his school. He's very advanced in his speech. He's a good sharer. He has friends. He had a girlfriend. And I loved all of that. And I love seeing the videos and pictures of all the things that he's doing in his school. And I recognize that, I am a wonderful mom. And when I am with him, I am so present. But I don't think that I don't think that I have quite the patience to, be the Instagram perfect mom, 24/7. And I think me working is actually best for both of us.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So in close, Laura, I'm curious, do you have any books that you recommend to our listeners? Anything that has helped, that has impacted you at all?
I love all of Emily Oster's work, but my favorite was Bringing Up Baby, and it's about a mom, American, and it moves to Paris, and it's about an American with her American standards and ideals, bringing up a baby and toddler in Paris, and noticing all the differences. And one of the things that really stuck out about that was the independence that they have. She's telling me one time she goes to a friend's house and the 3-year-old is making muffins, and measuring out everything out by himself and just makes these muffins. And before, I read it while I was pregnant, and like that just like crazy to me. And really I internalized that to help my son be very independent. He has a learning tower and he moves all around the kitchen to where he needs to be. Like this morning, he's obsessed with cracking eggs, and he cracked his eggs for his scrambled eggs this morning. And it really helped me, with ideas of independence, which is, something that's so important.
Laura, I love that. So why don't you tell our listeners how they can contact you if they want to follow up in any way?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook at the Trip Trotter. My website is thetriptrotter.com. And my email is thetriptrotter@Tzell, that's T like Tom, Z like zebra, ELL.com.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Billable Mom. At The Billable Mom, we don't pretend to have the answers, but instead have all the questions. Please find us on social media and join the conversation at The Billable Mom on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, Pinterest, and YouTube. We also have a Facebook group where like-minded billable moms find solidarity and provide a resource to one another. You can learn more about The Billable Mom and our picks for juggling work and motherhood at www.thebillablemom.com. You can also connect with Cari Rincker directly on social media at Cari Rincker. Until next time, let's calm the chaos 6 minutes at a time.